Hi, I'm Kandice from Orange County NORML.
And I'm Josue from Orange County NORML, bringing you the latest and greatest marijuana news.
Our first story today comes to us from the Orange County Register about the Lake Forest collectives who are allowed to reopen after being shut down. Two medical marijuana dispensaries opened recently following the state appellate court's ruling, staying a Superior Court judge's ruling in May that ordered all the dispensaries in the city to shut down. A decision by the state of California's Court of Appeal in the 4th Appellate District in Santa Ana ruled that Valley Two Door Cafe's request for temporary stay of the preliminary injunction by Superior Court Judge David Chafee to shut down was granted. Christopher Glue, who represents the two medical marijuana dispensaries, Valley Two Door and Care Mutual, formerly known as Gecko, said the appellate court's judgment lifts the Judge Chafee's May 28th ruling ordering a shutdown of all Lake Forest dispensaries until the appeals court takes further action. Glue expresses hope that the city and the collectives can now sit down together and work out a mutually beneficial plan.
8 facts you might know about medical marijuana. Not that long ago, your local pharmacy sold pot-based medicines, and the government collected tax. Marijuana as medicine is nothing new. Despite the current groundswell of laws making pot legal for medicinal uses, here's a quick fact file on cannabis and its medical history, makeup, and legality. Number 1, marijuana is a Mexican term that originally was applied to low-quality tobacco. 2, the plant was cultivated in China for therapy and recreation over 4,700 years ago. 3, more than 20 prescription medicines containing marijuana were sold in U.S. pharmacies at the turn of the 20th century. Pot-based medications were commonly available until 1942, when the cannabis was stricken from the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, the official compendium of drugs, considered effective. From 1937 to 1942, the federal government collected a tax of $1 per ounce for such drugs. Number 4, more than 20,000 studies on marijuana and its components have been published. According to the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, hey, that's us, an advocacy group, of these, around 100 have looked into the therapeutic value on human subjects. Number 5, the federal government is at the pot growing business. Under a federal contract, the University of Mississippi and Oxford cultivates marijuana for the use by researchers who have been cleared by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Number 6, the plant has nearly 500 chemical compounds, more than 60 of which are called cannabinoids. Number 7, 14 states of the District of Columbia have legalized medical marijuana: Alaska, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. But patients in these states are face federal prosecution for using it, or for growing or possessing pot for medical purposes. Number 8, federal laws prohibit physicians from prescribing, otherwise actively supplying patients with the drug. But in 2002, the U.S. Supreme Court backed an appellate court ruling that physicians who discuss it with their patients or provide oral or written recommendations are protected. Early morning on July 9th, the DEA assisted in 4 more raids on San Diego collectives. The stated intent of the Obama administration regarding cannabis collectives as of last fall was to leave them alone as long as they were abiding by state laws. And these collectives were at that time negotiating with the city and the county officials to establish rules and regulations that would satisfy the city and county officials and operators of the collectives. The state rules are already established and the collectives are abiding by them. But the Obama administration is showing us that they cannot be just dishonest and two-faced as the preceding. Republican administration, in their SWAT-style raids on Green Cross, Unified Collective, SDOC, and Cushland in San Diego, large squads of DEA agents invaded the collectives, taking medicine, money, and patients' records. Anyone familiar with the procedures which the feds use in their cases know that the collectives will probably never be able to recover the money that agents took. If they ever get the medicine back, it'll probably be unusable. And if the agents are abiding by the law and legal procedures, why do they disable the security cameras when they raid the collectives?
African Americans arrested for marijuana possession offenses in California's 25 counties, at least twice more than at the rate of Caucasians, according to a report released this week by researchers at Queens College, University of New York, and Shenandoah University in Virginia. Young blacks use marijuana at a lower rate than young whites. Yet from 2004 to 2008, in every one of the 25 largest counties in California, blacks were arrested for marijuana possession at higher rates than whites, typically at double, triple, or even quadruple the rates of whites. They were determined. Blacks were arrested for simple marijuana possession, far out of proportion to their percentage in the total population of these counties. In the 25 largest counties as a whole, blacks are 7% of the population, but about 20% of the people arrested for marijuana possession. Overall, the authors reported that in 2008, African Americans and Latinos combined comprised less than 44% of the state's population, but together constituted 56% of people arrested in California for possessing marijuana. An estimated 80% of those who were arrested were under 29 or younger. Citing the report, leaders from the California chapter of the NAACP on this last Tuesday expressed its unconditional support for Proposition 19, the Control, Tax, Regulate Cannabis Initiative 2010, which will allow adults 21 years and older to possess and cultivate marijuana for personal use. It would also permit local governments the option to authorize the retail sale and commercial cultivation of cannabis to adults. Personal marijuana cultivation or not-for-profit sale of marijuana would not be taxed under the measure. Alice Hoffman, president of the California Conference on NAACP, stated, "We have a miracle proof that the application of marijuana laws has been unfairly applied to the young people of color. We are joining a growing number of medical professionals, labor organizations, law enforcement authorities, local municipalities, and approximately 56% of the public in saying that it is time to decriminalize the adult use of marijuana."
Marijuana on the ballot in Oregon. Salem, Oregon. Proponents of a measure to establish statewide regulations for the legal production and distribution of medical marijuana have collected an estimated 130,000 signatures from registered voters in an effort to qualify for the proposal for the November 2010 ballot. The measure, known as I-28, needs approximately 83,000 valid signatures to qualify for the fall ballot. It's a lot of signatures. The Secretary of State office is presently in the process of verifying proponent signatures. Initiative 28 seeks to allow for the state licensed production and nonprofit distribution of cannabis to authorized patients. Under the plan, both dispensaries and private producers would be subject to inspection and auditing by the Health Department. Polling commissioned by Voter Power, who is co-sponsoring the initiative campaign, found that 59% of the Oregon voters support the measure.
A judge delays the decision on the enforcement of LA's medical marijuana law. A judge put off a decision on whether to bar Los Angeles from enforcing its new medical marijuana ordinance against 4 collectives, leaving the score of dispensaries that have filed suit in limbo more than 3 weeks after the law became effective. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Anthony Moore said that he believed the city's ordinance was imperfect, but also said that he was not certain that effects violated the rights of collectives forced to shut down by June 7th when the law went into effect. "It looks to me as if the statute's got some shortcomings," he said, but Moore appeared to tilt slightly towards the city's argument, saying the city's council's efforts to regain control over public safety issues, the explosive increase in the number of dispensaries, may have been valid even if flawed. "The city is very clearly trying to get a control of this situation," he said. A decision to grant preliminary injunctions could bring a halt to the dispensaries that might force the city council to revise the law. Although the injunctions would apply to 4 dispensaries, scores more would probably seek similar orders. Also, a Lake Forest initiative officially is on the ballot to protect medical marijuana patients. The city of Lake Elsinore has informed Wayne Williams of We the People that they have collected enough signatures to place their medical marijuana initiative on the November ballot. The initiative would establish regulations for the operation of medical cannabis collectives in Lake Elsinore.
All right, judge denies Jovan Jackson's motion. San Diego and San Diego Superior Court, the Honorable Judge Shore, in front of at least a dozen Mr. Jackson supporters, considered a motion to dismiss the case against Jovan Jackson based on the doctrine of collateral estoppel. Judge Shore denied the motion and based on the fact that the second trial stems from the event of a different date. According to Lance Rogers, Mr. Jackson's defense attorney, The doctrine of collateral estoppel means that the prior judgment is a bar to the new case based on the same issues. The doctrine is embodied in the Fifth Amendment, guaranteed against double jeopardy. Mr. Rogers originally filed this motion on February 2010. At the time, Judge Shore determined that he could not rule on the motion until after the preliminary hearing because it was uncertain what the facts of Mr. Jackson's new case were. According to Mr. Rogers, the new case stems from the September 9th, 09 raids, involves the exact same type of activities as Jackson's prior case of 2008. On December 1st, 2009, Jackson was acquitted of marijuana charges in that case. In this opposition to the motion, District Attorney Chris Lindberg argues that the September 9th, 09 case is different because, number one, it was a year later, number two, it involved a different officer, and number three, Amsterdam was using a different form. The trial in Mr. Jackson's case is set for August. Although the community is ready and willing to be able to stand for Mr. Jackson through the second trial, it is the hope of many in San Diego that the DA's office will realize the tremendous waste of resources and abuse of power trying Mr. Jackson again will cause, and drop the charges. Hopefully they'll be smart. Vienna AIDS Conference Declaration. Vienna AIDS Conference Declaration. Seeking to battle the international AIDS problem at the key source, scientists, researchers, and AIDS activists are addressing the conference, hoping to spotlight a major cause of the spread of AIDS, the international war on drugs. Their weapon is the Vienna Declaration, an official conference statement authorized by experts from the International AIDS Society, the International Center for Science and Drug Policy, and the British Columbia Center of Excellence in HIV and AIDS. The document is a harsh indictment of the global drug war that calls for evidence-based policymaking. It demands that laws which criminalize drug users and help fuel the spread of AIDS and be reformed. The criminalization of illicit drug users in fueling the HIV epidemic has resulted in overwhelmingly negative health and social consequences. A full policy reorientation is needed, they said in the declaration, arguing there is overwhelming evidence that the drug law enforcement has failed to meet the standards objectives. The declaration lays out its consequences of the drug war. HIV epidemics fueled by the criminalization of people who use illicit drug and prohibits the provision of sterile needles and opioid substitution treatment. HIV outbreaks among incarcerated and institutionalized drug users as a result of punitive laws, of policies, and lack of HIV prevention services in these settings. Undermining of public health systems when law enforcement drives drug users away from prevention and care services into environments where the risk of infectious disease transmission, HIV, hepatitis C and B, and tuberculosis, and other harms is increased. A crisis in criminal justice system as a result of record incarceration rates in a number of nations. This has negatively affected the social functioning of entire communities. While racial disparities in incarceration rates for drug offenses are evident in countries all over the world, the impact has been particularly severe in the U.S., where approximately 1 of 9 African American males in the age group of 20 to 34 is incarcerated on any given day, primarily as a result of drug law enforcement. Stigma towards people who use illicit drug, which reinforce the political popularity of criminalizing drug users and undermines HIV prevention and other health promotion efforts. Severe human rights violations, including torture, forced labor, inhuman and degrading treatment, and execution of drug offenders in a number of countries. A massive illicit market with an estimated annual value of $320 billion, these profits remain entirely outside the control of the government. They fuel crime, violence, corruption in counties, urban communities, and destabilize entire countries such as Colombia, Mexico, and Afghanistan also. Billions of tax dollars wasted on war on drugs, approach to drug control does not achieve its stated objective and instead directly and indirectly contributes to the above harms. There's no positive spin you can put on the drug war, said Dr. Evan Wood, founder of the International Center for Science and Drug Policy. You have $320 billion illegal market, the enrichment of organized crime, violence, spread of infectious diseases. The declaration coming from the scientific community is long overdue. The community has not been meeting its ethical obligation in terms of speaking up about the harms of the drug war. Stated the governments and international organizations have ethical and legal obligations to respond to the crisis. The declaration calls on governments and international organizations, including the UN, to undertake a transparent review of the effectiveness of current drug policies, implement and evaluate scientific-based public health approach to address the individual and community harms stemming from illicit drug use, decriminalizing drug users, scale up evidence-based drug dependence treatment options, and abolish effective compulsory drug treatment centers that violate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Thanks for watching our show tonight. I'm Kandice, and I'm the Executive Director of Orange County NORML.
And my name's Josue, and be sure to get all your latest marijuana news on orangecountynormal.org.